The Skandhas. We can make that split between the percept and what is perceived. At the beginning, we may think that perceiver is the actual self and the delusion involves only the object of perception. But actually, when we examine the perception of the perceiver, we discover that this same mistake is taking place. The many minute particles are mistaken for solid things. An analysis of the 5 skandhas reveals that the first skandha deals with the form and the way in which things are perceived externally. The other 4 skandhas deal with the internal mind, feelings, the process of perception, cognition, and consciousness. There are many elements that come together which can be mistaken for a self in just the same way one mistakes collections of minute particles as just one thing. For instance, if we look at the consciousness skandha, there are many different elements of consciousness, and they are always changing. For example, we have happy feelings, unpleasant feelings, fearful feelings, and so on. When we look at all the contradictions which make up the mind, we see that there is not just one unique and unchanging perceiver, but that the perceiving mind is made up of many different changing elements. We could never say any one of these is consciousness or feelings of the self. If there were a self, we could say, oh yes, that is definitely the self, that is the consciousness, and that is a feeling. In fact, what we sometimes think of as the I is a feeling associated with happiness or sadness, or a certain kind of consciousness. Sometimes the I seems to be the body, sometimes the I seems to be the mind, which perceives the body, sometimes it seems to be both. That is why the perception of a self is a delusion. The I is never constant. It is simply an idea associated with whatever else is happening. If it were the same all the time, then we could point to it very clearly and say, this is I. But when we think about it, I, or when we talk about it, we continually shift this location, indicating very clearly what a delusion this concept is. Once there is this delusion of I, there is the idea of mind.